Commander Juwan Park stood at the main window of Earth Defense Station Alpha, looking at the blue planet below. The year was 2157, and humans had spread across the solar system. They had bases on the Moon, Mars, and even the moons of Jupiter and Saturn. But they had not yet gone beyond. Juwan's comm device buzzed. He picked it up quickly. "Commander Park here," he said. "Sir, we have a problem near Neptune," said the voice of his second-in-command. "Strange readings coming in." Juwan frowned. "What kind of readings?" "Gravity shifts, sir, like nothing we've seen before." Juwan walked briskly to the command center. Large screens showed the outer solar system. Near Neptune, something was happening. The space around the blue planet seemed to bend and twist. "Get me the Neptune research station," ordered Juwan. The screen flickered. A woman with short black hair appeared. She looked worried. "Dr. Haniel Kim, what's happening out there?" asked Juwan. "Commander, our instruments are going crazy," said Haniel. "It's like space itself is opening up." Suddenly, the screen shook. Alarms blared in the background. "They're coming through," Haniel shouted. The camera turned to show the view from Neptune Station's window. Juwan's breath caught in his throat. Where there had been empty space, now hundreds of ships appeared. They were unlike any human ships. They looked like giant birds made of metal, with wings that spanned kilometers. "Are they trying to communicate?" asked Juwan. Haniel typed frantically at her console. "We're sending all standard greeting protocols." No response yet. One of the bird ships moved closer to Neptune Station. It opened what looked like a beak. A beam of light shot out. The screen went white, then black, then static. "Dr. Kim," Juwan shouted. "Haniel." The connection was dead. For 3 long days, Earth Command tried to reach Neptune Station. On the 4th day, a small escape pod arrived at the Mars colony. Inside was Haniel Kim, badly injured. "They killed everyone," she told Juwan when he arrived at Mars Hospital. "No warning, no message. They just attacked." "Who are they?" asked Juwan. "They call themselves the Galactiers," said Haniel. "I found out when I hacked into one of their signals before escaping." She handed him a data stick. "I recorded everything I could. Their ships are alive. Commander, part machine, part bird. And they have weapons, living weapons, that they release on stations. Living weapons." Haniel's eyes filled with tears. "Giant birds, bigger than any bird on Earth. They hunt humans. They're smart. They're fast. And they're coming this way." Within a week, the outer stations around Uranus fell silent. Then the mining colonies on Saturn's moons stopped responding. The Galactiers were moving toward Earth, system by system. Juwan called an emergency meeting of Earth's Unified Defense Force. "We are facing an enemy unlike any we've encountered," he told the grim-faced leaders. "They have not responded to any communication attempts. They showed no mercy, and they're destroying everything in their path." He showed them Haniel's data. The room grew quiet as they watched footage of giant metal ships releasing even larger birds that tore through space stations, hunting the humans inside. "These are the Galactiers," said Juwan. "And they've brought terror on wings." An admiral raised his hand. "What hope do we have? Their technology is far beyond ours." Juwan nodded to Haniel, who had insisted on attending despite her injuries. "There's something in their technology," she said, "something familiar. Their navigation systems, their biology. It's similar to Earthbirds in some ways. I think there might be a weakness there." Juwan looked at the worried faces around him. "Humanity has faced extinction before," he said. "We've overcome plagues, world wars, climate disasters. We will find a way to fight these Galactiers too." But privately, as reports came in of Jupiter's moons falling to the bird ships, Juwan wondered if this time humanity had met an enemy it couldn't defeat. Lieutenant Do-Hyun Lee crouched behind a fallen metal wall on Europa, Jupiter's icy moon. His hand shook as he checked his weapon. The sounds outside made his blood run cold. Screams, then silence, then the sound of large wings beating. "They're coming closer," whispered Summon Kang, the young engineer who had found him hiding. Her face was dirty, and her eyes were wide with fear. "How many people are left in your section?" asked Do-Yun. 7, mostly workers from the water mining facility, said Summon. "They're hiding in the storage room." Do-Yun nodded. "We need to get everyone to the emergency shuttles." Just 3 days ago, Europa Base had been home to 500 people. Then the Galactiers arrived. First came their ships, huge bird-like machines that hovered over the base. Then came the real horror, the terror wings. They were not machines. They were living creatures, bigger than Earth's largest eagles, with razor-sharp beaks and claws that could tear through metal. And they were smart. They hunted in groups, cutting off escape routes, trapping humans. Do-Yun had seen his whole team die when the first wave of terror wings broke into the command center. A loud thump on the roof made both Do-Yun and Summon freeze. "They found us," Summon whispered. The metal above them dented inward as something heavy landed. A screech, like metal on metal, filled the air. Then came a sound like knocking. The terror wing was tapping the roof, listening for movement inside. "It's testing for weak spots," said Do-Yun. "These things learn fast." Summon pulled something from her pocket, a small device with blinking lights. "What's that?" asked Do-Yun. "Something I've been working on," said Summon. "I noticed they don't like certain electromagnetic frequencies. This creates a small field that might confuse them." The terror wing screeched again, now moving to the wall. Its shadow passed by a small window. It was huge, with dark blue-black feathers and eyes that glowed yellow. "Now," said Summon, pressing a button on her device. The terror wing let out a pained cry. They heard it stumble on the roof, its claws scraping wildly. Then it flew away, its wing beats uneven. "It worked," said Do-Yun, surprised. "Only for a little while," said Summon, standing up. "The effect doesn't last long. We need to move now." They ran to the storage room and found the 7 workers. Together, they made their way through the damaged base, using Summon's device whenever they heard wings approaching. The emergency shuttles were in the lower level. As they reached the shuttle bay, they saw 3 more people running toward them, chased by 2 terror wings. "Get in the shuttle," Do-Yun shouted to Summon and the others. He raised his weapon and fired at the terror wings, trying to buy time. The creatures were fast, dodging his shots. One of the running people fell. A terror wing swooped down, grabbing the person in its claws and flying up through a hole in the ceiling. Do-Yun kept firing until the last 2 people reached the shuttle. Then he jumped in and sealed the door just as a terror wing slammed against it. "Launch," he shouted to Summon, who was already at the controls. The shuttle's engines roared to life. They shot out of the bay, away from Europa Base, which was now mostly destroyed. Looking back, they could see dozens of terror wings circling the base and several Galactier ships hovering above. "Where do we go now?" asked one of the workers. "Mars," said Do-Yun. "It's the next defensive line, and I need to report what I've seen." He looked at Summon, who was studying her device. "And she needs to show someone her discovery. It might be important." Summon looked up. "These terror wings, they're not just weapons. The way they hunt, the way they learn. I think they're connected to the Galactiers somehow." "What do you mean?" asked Do-Yun. "I think the Galactiers aren't just using these birds," said Summon. "I think they are these birds in some way. And if I'm right, that might be how we can fight them." As the shuttle sped toward Mars, behind them Jupiter's moons fell one by one to the terror from the skies. Commander Juan Park stood in the large underground war room beneath Seoul. Maps and screens covered the walls, showing the solar system. Red dots marked where the Galactiers had already attacked. There were too many red dots now. "They've taken all of Jupiter's moons," said Juan. "Mars will be next. Around the table sat Earth's best minds. Dr. Hanul Kim sat with her arm in a cast, still recovering from her escape from Neptune. Lieutenant Do-Yeon Lee had dark circles under his eyes. He had only arrived from Europa 2 days ago. Next to him sat Soman Kang, the young engineer who had discovered something important about the terror wings. "Tell us again about your device," Juan said to Soman. Soman placed a small box on the table. "I noticed the terror wings react to certain electromagnetic fields. This device creates a frequency that confuses them. It doesn't work for long, but it gave us enough time to escape." Hanul picked up the device. "This matches what I found in my data. The Galactier ships emit a similar frequency, but much stronger. It's how they control the terror wings." "So the birds are like drones?" asked Do-Yeon. "Not exactly," said Hanul. "They're living creatures, but they have something in their brains that connects them to the Galactier ships. It's like the ships are the mother birds." Juan looked at the screens showing the Galactier ships. They did look like giant metal birds. "Is there a way to use this against them?" he asked. The room went quiet. Then a new voice spoke from the doorway. "Maybe there is." Everyone turned. A tall, thin man with gray hair stood there. He looked old and tired, like he hadn't slept in days. "Professor Tae-hyun Cho," said Juan, surprised. "I didn't know you were coming." "I wasn't going to," said Tae-hyun, "until I heard about the electromagnetic frequencies." Tae-hyun was famous. Before retiring, he had been Earth's top weapons designer. Now he rarely left his home in the mountains. He walked to the table and picked up Soman's device. "This frequency," he said. "It reminds me of something from the past." "What do you mean?" asked Soman. Tae-hyun looked at her. "What do you know about Hiroshima?" "The nuclear bombing in old Japan." "That was over 200 years ago," said Soman. "Yes," said Tae-hyun. "But after that event, scientists noticed something strange about the birds in that area. For decades, their migration patterns changed. Their navigation was disrupted." He turned to the screens showing the Galactier ships. "These aliens, they're bird-like. Their ships are bird-like. Their weapons are actual birds. What if they use the same type of navigation system that Earth birds use? What if we could disrupt it, the way nuclear radiation disrupted birds after Hiroshima?" The room was silent as everyone thought about this. "You're talking about using nuclear weapons?" asked Juan, concerned. "No," said Tae-hyun quickly. "Not the weapons themselves, but the frequency, the specific electromagnetic pattern that affected the birds. If we could recreate that without the radiation, aim it at the Galactiers, we might confuse them the way Soman's device confused the terror wings," finished Hanul. "But on a much larger scale. Can we do that?" asked Do-Yeon. "Create such a device?" Tae-hyun looked at Soman. "Your grandfather worked on bird migration studies, didn't he? In the Hiroshima research zone." Soman's eyes widened. "How did you know that?" "Because I worked with him," said Tae-hyun. "Before I designed weapons, I studied the effects of radiation on wildlife. Your grandfather found something important in those birds, something the world wasn't ready to use then. But now we need it," said Juan. He stood up straight. "Professor Cho, can you build us a weapon based on this research?" Tae-hyun nodded slowly. "Not a weapon exactly. More like a key. A key to unlock the weakness in the Galactier's nature." "What would you call it?" asked Hanul. Tae-hyun looked at the image of a terror wing on one of the screens. "They sent their birds to hunt us," he said quietly. "We'll send ours to hunt them. We'll call them Falcons." As they spoke, the screen showed new red dots appearing around Mars. The Galactiers were getting closer to Earth. Deep under the mountains of South Korea, a new facility had been built in just 2 weeks. It was here that Professor Tae-hyun Cho and Soman Kang worked day and night on Project Falcon. The large workroom was filled with parts, tools, and strange devices. In the middle stood a table with what looked like a metal bird. It was about the size of an eagle, but its wings were covered with special panels. "Pass me that circuit board," said Tae-yun, not looking up from his work. Salman handed him the small green board. "Will it be ready in time?" They both knew what she meant. The Galactiers had taken Mars 3 days ago. Now they were heading toward Earth. They had weeks at most. "It has to be," said Tae-yun simply. The door opened, and Commander Juwon Park walked in with Dr. Hanyul Kim. "How is it going?" asked Juwon. Tae-yun stepped back from the table. "See for yourself. Our first Falcon." Hanyul moved closer to look at the metal bird. "It's smaller than I expected." "Size doesn't matter," said Tae-yun. "What matters is the signal it sends out." He picked up a small controller and pressed a button. The Falcon's eyes lit up blue, and it made a soft humming sound. "The key is the frequency," explained Salman. "After Hiroshima, birds in that area couldn't navigate properly. Their internal compasses were disrupted by a specific type of electromagnetic radiation. We've recreated that exact frequency," said Tae-yun. "But without the harmful radiation, this little bird sends out waves that should confuse the terror wings and possibly even the Galactier ships themselves." "Should?" asked Juwon. "We won't know for sure until we test it," admitted Tae-yun. Hanyul looked worried. "And how do we test it? We'd need an actual terror wing." "We have the next best thing," said Salman. She walked to a covered cage in the corner of the room and pulled off the cloth. Inside was a small terror wing, no bigger than a hawk. It was injured, one of its wings bent at a strange angle. "Where did you get that?" asked Juwon, stepping back. "It was in our shuttle when we escaped Europa," explained Salman. "A baby, I think. It was hiding in the cargo hold. It can't fly with that broken wing, but it's still dangerous." The small terror wing hissed at them, its yellow eyes glowing with hate. "Watch this," said Tae-yun. He turned on the Falcon again. The terror wing suddenly stopped hissing. It cocked its head to one side, then began to shake. It tried to fly but crashed into the side of its cage. Then it curled up in a ball, trembling. "It's working," whispered Hanyul. "On a baby, yes," said Tae-yun. "But will it work on the adults?" "On the ships. We need to make it stronger." "How many can you build?" asked Juwon. "With the materials we have, maybe 100, said Salman. "But we'd need thousands to protect all of Earth." Juwon's comm device buzzed. He listened for a moment, then his face grew dark. "The Galactiers have reached the moon," he said. "They're attacking the lunar colonies now." Everyone was quiet. The moon was Earth's closest neighbor, its first line of defense. "We need more time," said Tae-yun. "We don't have it," said Juwon. "We need to deploy what we have now. Captain Jisoo-yoon is leading our last stand at Mars. She's been holding them back, giving us time. If we can get her some of these Falcons, maybe she can test them in real combat." Tae-yun nodded. "We'll have 10 ready by tomorrow." "Will that be enough?" asked Hanyul. "It has to be," said Juwon. As they spoke, the small terror wing in the cage began to make a strange chirping sound. It was like it was calling to something. Something far away, but coming closer. "They know we're here," said Salman softly. "They know what we're doing." Outside, in space, the Galactier fleet moved past the burning ruins of the lunar colonies, their eyes now fixed on the blue planet ahead. Captain Jisoo-yoon stood on the bridge of her ship, the Defender. Through the large window, she could see the red planet Mars below. Around Mars, 50 Earth ships formed a defensive line. It was all that stood between the Galactiers and Earth. And it wasn't enough. "How many enemy ships?" asked Jisoo. "Over 300, replied her second-in-command. "And more coming." Jisoo tightened her grip on the railing. They had been fighting for 3 days straight. Half of her fleet was gone, but they had held the line, keeping the Galactiers from pushing forward. "Captain," called a young officer. "We have an incoming transport from Earth." Jisoo frowned. "In the middle of a battle. What are they thinking?" But when the small transport docked with her ship, she understood. Lieutenant Do-Hyun Lee stepped out, carrying a metal case. "Captain Yoon," he said with a quick salute, "I bring you weapons from Earth." He opened the case. Inside were 10 small bird-shaped drones. "Falcons," said Do-Hyun. "They emit a special frequency that disrupts the Terror Wing's navigation. They might work on the Galactier ships too." Jisoo looked at the small metal birds. "These are supposed to save us." "They're prototypes," admitted Do-Hyun. "Commander Park says you should test them in real combat." Jisoo picked up one of the Falcons. It was lighter than it looked, and cool to the touch. "How do they work?" she asked. "Just release them. They'll fly on their own," said Do-Hyun, "but stay at least 50 meters away. The effect might confuse our navigation systems too if you're too close." An alarm sounded. The ship's computer announced, "Enemy ships approaching. Attack formation." "Time to test these birds," said Jisoo. She turned to her crew. "Prepare for battle." The Earth ships formed a tight defense around Mars's main colony. The Galactier ships came in waves, their huge wing-like structures glowing with energy. "Release the Falcons," ordered Jisoo. The small launch bay opened, and the 10 metal birds flew out into space. They glowed blue as they activated, spreading out toward the enemy. At first, nothing seemed to happen. The Galactier ships kept coming, their weapons firing. 2 Earth ships exploded. "It's not working," said someone on the bridge. Then one of the Galactier ships suddenly veered off course. It crashed into another ship. Both spun out of control. "Look!" shouted Do-Hyun, pointing at the screen. Near one of the Falcons, a group of terror wings had been released from a Galactier ship. But instead of attacking the Earth ships, they were flying in circles, crashing into each other. "It's working," said Jisoo. "Target that area. Concentrate fire where the Falcons are causing confusion." The Earth ships attacked, destroying several confused Galactier ships. For a moment, it looked like they might win. Then a massive ship appeared, bigger than any they had seen before. It had to be the Galactier flagship. It fired a wide beam that destroyed 3 of the Falcons instantly. "They're adapting," said Do-Hyun. "They're targeting the Falcons." Jisoo made a quick decision. "We need to get this data back to Earth. They need to know what worked and what didn't." She turned to Do-Hyun. "Take my personal shuttle. It's the fastest. Bring all the battle data to Commander Park." "What about you?" asked Do-Hyun. Jisoo looked at the massive Galactier flagship. "I'll buy you time." Before Do-Hyun could argue, the ship rocked with an explosion. Half the bridge controls went dark. "Go," ordered Jisoo. "That's an order, Lieutenant." Do-Hyun ran to the shuttle bay. As he prepared to launch, he saw the Defender move toward the Galactier flagship, the remaining Falcons flying around it like a protective shield. The shuttle shot away from the battle. Behind him, Do-Hyun saw a blinding flash as the Defender collided with the Galactier flagship. The explosion was visible even as he entered warp speed toward Earth. He clutched the data drive in his hand. Captain Jisoo Yoon had sacrificed herself to give them this information. He wouldn't let her sacrifice be in vain. Somin Kang stood in Hiroshima Peace Park. Around her, cherry trees bloomed, their pink flowers floating down like snow. It was hard to believe that over 200 years ago, this beautiful place had been destroyed by a nuclear bomb. She walked to a small stone marker. It was not one of the famous monuments. This one was in a quiet corner of the park. The words on it were simple, in memory of those who studied the aftermath. "May their work lead to peace." Solomon placed a small bunch of flowers at the base of the stone. "Hello, grandfather," she said softly. "I need your help." Back at the facility, Professor Taehyun and Dr. Haniol were working with the data Lieutenant Do-Hyun had brought back from Mars. The Falcons had worked, but not well enough. The Galactiers had quickly found a way to fight back. Solomon had come to Hiroshima to find answers in her grandfather's research. She sat on a bench and opened a small tablet. On it were her grandfather's old journals, photos, and research papers. He had spent his life studying the birds of Hiroshima after the bombing. "What did you find, grandfather?" she whispered, scrolling through the files. A photo caught her eye. It showed a flock of birds flying in strange patterns. The note beneath it read, "Fifth generation post-event. Still showing navigation disruption at 23.7 Hz. Soman frowned. The Falcons they had built were using a different frequency. Had they been wrong all along? She kept reading. Her grandfather had tracked birds for decades after the bombing. He found that certain frequencies affected not just the first generation of birds, but their children and their children's children. It's not just any frequency, Soman realized. It's this specific one. 23.7 Hz, the one that affected birds for generations. Her tablet beeped with a message from Taeyeon. "Where are you? We need you back here." Soman looked up at the peace park around her. In the distance stood the famous dome, the only building left standing after the bomb. It had been preserved as a reminder of what happened. She thought about her grandfather walking these same paths, watching the birds, taking notes. Year after year, decade after decade, he had found something important, something the world had forgotten. Her tablet beeped again. This time, it was a video call from Commander Park. "Soman, we need you back now," said Juwon, his face serious. "The Galactiers have broken through our defenses at the moon. They'll reach Earth in less than 48 hours. "I found it," said Soman, standing up. "I know what we did wrong with the Falcons. The frequency is wrong. It needs to be exactly 23.7 Hz. "Are you sure?" asked Juwon. "My grandfather was sure," said Soman. "He watched bird behavior here for 50 years. This specific frequency disrupted their navigation for generations. It's like the birds remembered the bomb in their DNA. "Get back here as fast as you can," said Juwon. "We'll have everything ready to make the changes." As Soman hurried out of the park, she looked back at her grandfather's small monument. The old scientists who had studied Hiroshima's aftermath had been looking for ways to prevent such destruction from happening again. They never imagined their work would one day help save humanity from alien invaders. On her way to the transport station, Soman looked up at the sky. It was a clear blue day. Soon it would be filled with terror wings, hunting humans from above. Unless they could stop them. She clutched her tablet with her grandfather's research close to her chest. The answer had been here all along, in the quiet studies of birds that couldn't find their way home after the world changed in a flash of light. The birds remembered Hiroshima. And now that memory might save Earth. The sky above Earth turned dark as hundreds of Galactier ships moved into position. Their wing-like structures blocked the sun, casting huge shadows over cities and oceans below. In Seoul's underground command center, Commander Juwon Park watched the screens with a grim face. "They're preparing to release terror wings," reported an officer. First wave detected entering the atmosphere over Asia. Juwon turned to Doyeon, who stood ready in his flight suit. "Are the squadrons in position?" "Yes, sir," said Doyeon. "All 50 pilots are ready with their Falcons." After Soman's discovery in Hiroshima, Professor Taeyeon had worked day and night to modify the Falcons. Now each drone emitted the exact frequency of 23.7 Hz, the same frequency that had disrupted birds' navigation systems for generations after the nuclear blast. Soman and Hanyul monitored the systems from a bank of computers. "All Falcons are operating at 23.7 Hz, confirmed Soman. "Power level stable." Juwon nodded. "Lieutenant Lee, launch operation remembrance." Doyeon saluted and ran to the launch bay. His fighter was the lead ship, carrying the control system for all 50 Falcons. The other pilots would protect him at all costs. As the squadron rose into the sky, they saw the terror wings for the first time on Earth. They were huge, larger than the ones at Europa. Their wingspans stretched 20 meters across, and their beaks gleamed like metal in the sunlight. "There are thousands of them," said one pilot over the radio. "Stay focused," ordered Doyeon. "Remember your training." When they reached 10,000 meters, Doyeon pressed the release button. launching Falcons now. 50 metal birds shot out from the fighters. Unlike the prototypes at Mars, these were larger and stronger. Their wings glowed blue as they activated, spreading out in a wide formation. At first, nothing seemed to happen. The terror wings continued their descent toward Earth's cities. "It's not working," said a pilot nervously. Then, a terror wing near one of the Falcons suddenly stopped in midair. It shook its head violently, then turned and attacked another terror wing. "Look!" shouted Do-Yun. "It's starting." More terror wings began to show signs of confusion. Some flew in circles. Others crashed into each other. A few turned and flew back toward their motherships. "The frequency is working," said Salman over the radio from the command center. "It's affecting them exactly like the birds in Hiroshima." Above them, something even more remarkable happened. 2 Galactier ships veered off course and collided, exploding in a ball of fire. "The ships too," said Handul. "The frequency affects the ships too." The Earth fighters attacked, shooting down confused terror wings and targeting the disoriented Galactier ships. For the first time since the invasion began, humanity had the advantage. But then, the massive flagship appeared. It was the same ship that had destroyed Captain Jisu's force at Mars. It moved through the chaos, seemingly unaffected by the Falcon's frequency. "How is it resisting?" asked Juan, watching from the command center. "It must have shielding," said Tae-Yun. "They've learned from Mars." The flagship fired a wide beam that destroyed 10 Falcons at once. Then it released a new type of terror wing, larger, with metal plates covering its head. "They've adapted," realized Do-Yun. "They're protecting their birds against our frequency." The new terror wings attacked the Earth fighters. 3 exploded immediately. "Pull back," ordered Juan over the radio. "We need to regroup." As the Earth fighters retreated, Do-Yun looked back. Despite the flagship's resistance, many Galactier ships were still affected by the Falcons. The sky was filled with confused terror wings attacking each other. It wasn't a victory, but it wasn't a defeat either. "We've hurt them," said Do-Yun as he landed back at base. "For the first time, we've really hurt them." But as the remaining fighters landed, everyone knew the truth. The Falcons had worked, but not well enough. The Galactier flagship remained untouched, hovering above the Earth like a giant predator waiting to strike. They needed something more to win this war. "We need to get inside that flagship," said Commander Juan Park. The war room was quiet. Everyone stared at Juan like he had lost his mind. "Inside?" asked Do-Yun. "Sir, that's impossible." "Not impossible," said Juan. "Just very dangerous." It had been 12 hours since the first battle with the Falcons. The Galactiers had pulled back to regroup, but everyone knew they would attack again soon. And next time, more of their forces would be protected against the Falcon frequency. "The flagship is the key," explained Handul. "Based on what we've seen, it controls the other ships. If we can disable it, we might stop the entire invasion." Salman pointed to a scan of the flagship on the main screen. "Our sensors detected something interesting. The center of the ship has a huge energy source. I think it's some kind of control center." "What are you suggesting?" asked Tae-Yun. "A small team could use a stealth shuttle to approach the flagship during the next battle," said Juan. "While our forces distract them with another Falcon attack, we slip inside and place specially designed Falcons at key points in the ship." "A suicide mission," said Do-Yun quietly. Juan nodded. "Probably. But it might be our only chance to save Earth." "I'll go," said Haniel suddenly. "I understand the Galactier biology and technology better than anyone. I need to be on that team." "And I'll fly the shuttle," said Do-Yun. "I'm the best pilot we have left." Juan looked at them both. "I'll lead the mission myself." No one argued. They all knew the stakes. 6 hours later, a small stealth shuttle left Earth during the chaos of the second battle. While Earth fighters deployed more Falcons against the Galactier forces, drawing their attention, the shuttle slipped past their defenses. 5 minutes to contact," said Do-Yun, piloting the shuttle toward the massive flagship. Juan, Handel, and 4 soldiers checked their weapons and the special Falcons they carried. These new models were designed to emit the 23.7 Hz frequency at 10 times the power of the standard ones. "There," said Doyan, pointing to a small opening in the flagship's wing. "It looks like a maintenance hatch." He guided the shuttle to the hatch. With a soft thud, they attached to the Galactier ship. "Remember," said Juan as they prepared to enter, "we placed these Falcons at the 4 points someone identified. Then we get out." They all knew getting out was unlikely, but no one said it. Inside the flagship, they found strange, curved hallways that looked like they were made of both metal and something organic. The air was warm and smelled like a forest. "This way," whispered Haniel, following the readings on her device. "The energy center is ahead." They placed the first Falcon in a junction of corridors, hiding it behind some pipes. They moved deeper into the ship, placing the second and third Falcons at key points. Finally, they reached a massive chamber in the center of the ship. What they saw there made them freeze in shock. The room was filled with thousands of smaller versions of the Terror Wings, all connected to a central machine by thin, glowing wires. And in the middle sat a creature larger than any they had seen before. It looked like a giant bird, but parts of its body were mechanical. Its eyes were screens that showed images from all over Earth. "The Galactier Supreme," whispered Haniel. "Just as I suspected. The Terror Wings aren't just weapons. They're extensions of the Galactiers themselves." The huge bird creature turned its head toward them. Its eyes focused on the humans. "You have come to our nest," it said in a strange, clicking voice. "You who fight with the memory of fire." "It can speak our language," said Do-Yun in shock. "We learn quickly," said the Galactier Supreme. "Your world will join our flock. You cannot stop the unity." Juwan stepped forward, the final Falcon hidden behind his back. "We've already stopped many of your ships. Your Terror Wings turn against you." "Temporary confusion," said the Supreme. "We adapt. We always adapt." As it spoke, guards appeared, creatures that were half bird, half machine, like the Supreme but smaller. "Now," said Juwan. Haniel quickly set up the final Falcon while the soldiers fired at the guards. The chamber erupted in chaos. "We need to activate all 4 at once," shouted Haniel over the noise. "They need to create a resonance field." As the guards closed in, Juwan reached for the control that would activate all 4 Falcons at once. Juwan's finger pressed the activation button. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a low hum filled the chamber. The 4 Falcons placed throughout the flagship began to emit the special 23.7 Hz frequency, the exact frequency that had disrupted bird navigation after Hiroshima. The Galactier Supreme screeched, a sound so loud it hurt the humans' ears. All around the chamber, the small Terror Wings connected to the central machine began to shake and pull at their wires. "It's working," shouted Haniel. The guard creatures stopped attacking. They stumbled, confused, bumping into walls and each other. Some began to peck at their own mechanical parts. "You bring the memory of fire," said the Supreme, its voice now distorted. "The memory that breaks the bond." "The frequency," explained Haniel as they backed toward the exit. "It's not just disrupting their navigation, it's breaking their neural connection. The Galactiers control their ships and Terror Wings through a shared mind." The Supreme rose up, its massive wings spreading to fill half the chamber. "We have traveled across stars. We have added 1,000 worlds to our flock. You cannot stop us with this memory." But even as it spoke, parts of the flagship began to shake. Lights flickered. On Do-Yun's communication device, they could hear reports from Earth's forces. "The Terror Wings are turning against the Galactier ships. They're attacking each other. The smaller ships are colliding." The resonance field created by the 4 Falcons was spreading through the entire fleet. The Supreme lunged at the humans, but its movements were jerky, uncoordinated. 2 soldiers fired at it, hitting its mechanical parts. It fell back, screeching. "We need to get out now," said Yuan. "The whole ship might come apart." They ran through the corridors, which were now filled with confused guard creatures. Some ignored the humans completely, too busy fighting their own kind. Back at the shuttle, Do-Hyun quickly prepared for launch. The frequency is affecting the flagship's systems. It's losing power. As they detached from the flagship, they could see the battle outside. Terror wings flew in chaotic patterns, attacking Galactier ships. Some of the smaller ships drifted without control, crashing into each other. "Send the signal to Earth," ordered Yuan. "Have them increase the frequency on all remaining Falcons." Haniel sent the message. Moments later, the remaining Falcons around Earth began to emit the 23.7 Hz frequency at maximum power. The effect rippled through the entire Galactier fleet like a wave. Ships spun out of control. Terror wings turned on their masters. The neural network that connected the entire invasion force was breaking apart. In the center of it all, the flagship began to glow red. Explosions rippled across its wing-like structures. "It's going to blow," warned Do-Hyun, pushing the shuttle's engines to maximum speed. They barely made it to safe distance when the flagship exploded in a blinding flash. The shockwave hit their shuttle, sending them tumbling through space. Do-Hyun fought to regain control as they fell toward Earth. After a rough landing in the Pacific Ocean, they were picked up by rescue teams. From the recovery ship, they watched the skies above Earth. The remaining Galactier ships, cut off from their Supreme, were either retreating or being destroyed by Earth's forces. 1 month later, Soman-Kang stood once again in Hiroshima Peace Park. This time, she wasn't alone. Yuan, Haniel, Do-Hyun, and Tae-Hyun stood with her in front of her grandfather's memorial. "The world wants to call us heroes," said Yuan. "But the real hero was your grandfather's, Soman. His research saved us all." Soman placed flowers at the stone marker. He studied the birds of Hiroshima for 50 years. He always said nature remembers what we try to forget. The frequency that disrupted the birds after the nuclear blast was the exact same one that disrupted the Galactiers, said Haniel. Somehow, across the stars, they shared the same vulnerability. "Perhaps it's the universe reminding us," said Tae-Hyun quietly. "Every destruction contains the seeds of salvation, if we're wise enough to find them." Above them, birds flew freely across the blue sky. Earth birds, following their natural paths, undisturbed by terror or alien signals. Soman looked up at them and smiled. "The Galactiers brought terror on wings," she said. "But we sent the Falcons that remembered Hiroshima." In space, the last of the Galactier ships disappeared into the darkness between stars, carrying the memory of a small blue planet that had broken their unity with a frequency born from humanity's darkest hour, and its enduring hope.